Did you know that there's a country smaller than New Jersey that has more companies on NASDAQ than all of Europe combined? A nation that was built on desert land and now exports water technology to the world? A place where people invented the USB drive, instant messaging, and the technology that powers your smartphone camera? Today we're diving into the absolutely incredible story of Israel. This isn't just another history lesson. This is the story of how a tiny nation became one of the most innovative countries on earth. How a people scattered across the globe for 2,000 years came back to rebuild their homeland. And how they turned challenges that would break most nations into opportunities that changed the world. From ancient kingdoms to modern miracles, from devastating wars to breakthrough innovations. This is a story that will blow your mind. Let's start at the very beginning. Picture this. It's 4,000 years ago, and a man named Abraham makes a journey that will change history forever. He travels from ancient Mesopotamia to a land called Canaan, which is modern-day Israel and Palestine. God makes a promise to Abraham that his descendants will inherit this land. This promise becomes the foundation of everything that follows. Abraham's grandson Jacob gets a new name, Israel, which means he who wrestles with God. Jacob has 12 sons, and these become the 12 tribes of Israel. Fast forward a few centuries and these tribes have grown into a massive nation. But here's where the story gets dramatic. A terrible famine hits the region, and Jacob's family has to flee to Egypt to survive. At first, they're welcomed as guests, but over time, they become slaves. For 400 years, the Israelites work as slaves in Egypt, building monuments and cities for the pharaohs. Then comes one of the most famous stories in human history. Moses, an Israelite raised in Pharaoh's palace, leads his people out of slavery. The journey back to their homeland takes 40 years in the desert. When they finally arrive, they establish the Kingdom of Israel. This kingdom reaches its peak under King David and his son Solomon around 1000 BCE. King David captures Jerusalem and makes it the capital. Solomon builds the first temple, which becomes the center of Jewish worship. But here's where things get complicated. The kingdom splits into two parts, Israel in the north and Judah in the south. Over the next few centuries, powerful empires keep conquering the region. First, the Assyrians destroy the northern kingdom. Then the Babylonians conquer the south and destroy Solomon's temple. The people are forced into exile in Babylon. This is where we get the famous phrase, "By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat and wept." But the story doesn't end there. After 70 years, the Persian Empire conquers Babylon and allows the Jews to return home. They rebuild the temple and restore their nation. For several centuries, different empires control the region, Persians, Greeks, and finally Romans. In 70 CE, the Romans destroy the Second Temple and scatter the Jewish people across the empire. This begins what historians call the Diaspora, the scattering of the Jewish people around the world. For nearly 2,000 years, Jews live in communities across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. They preserve their language, traditions, and the dream of returning to their homeland. But life in exile is incredibly difficult. Jews face persecution, forced conversions, and massacres in country after country. In Spain, they're expelled in 1492. In Russia, they face violent attacks called pogroms. By the late 1800s, a new movement emerges called Zionism. The idea is simple but revolutionary. Jews should return to their ancient homeland and rebuild their nation. The movement's leader, Theodor Herzl, writes a book called The Jewish State. He argues that the only solution to centuries of persecution is for Jews to have their own country. Small groups of Jews start moving back to Ottoman-controlled Palestine in the 1880s. They buy land, establish farms, and rebuild Hebrew as a spoken language. Hebrew hadn't been used for daily conversation for over 1,000 years. One man, Eliezer ben Yehuda, almost single-handedly revives the language. He refuses to speak anything but Hebrew to his children. His son becomes the first native Hebrew speaker in modern times. World War I changes everything. The British defeat the Ottoman Empire and take control of Palestine. In 1917, British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour issues the Balfour Declaration. This document supports the establishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. More Jews start immigrating, especially as anti-Semitism rises in Europe. They drain swamps, plant forests, and build cities. Tel Aviv is founded in 1909 as the first modern Hebrew city. By the 1930s, the Jewish population in Palestine grows rapidly. But this creates tension with the Arab population, who also live there. Both groups claim the same land as their homeland. Violence breaks out between the communities. Then comes the Holocaust. Nazi Germany systematically murders 6 million Jews across Europe. This is 1/3 of the entire Jewish population worldwide. The survivors have nowhere to go. Many countries refuse to accept Jewish refugees. The need for a Jewish homeland becomes urgent. In 1947, the United Nations votes to partition Palestine into 2 states, one Jewish, one Arab. The Jewish community accepts the plan. The Arab nations reject it. On May 14, 1948, David Ben-Gurion reads the Israeli Declaration of Independence. After 2,000 years, the Jewish people have their own country again. But the celebration is short-lived. The very next day, 5 Arab armies attack the new nation. Israel has no real military, no heavy weapons, and is vastly outnumbered. Most experts predict Israel will be destroyed within weeks. But something incredible happens. Through determination, clever tactics, and some luck, Israel not only survives but wins. The War of Independence lasts 15 months. Israel loses 1% of its entire population, but establishes its borders. Now comes the real challenge: building a nation from scratch. Israel has to absorb massive waves of immigration. Holocaust survivors arrive with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Entire Jewish communities from Arab countries flee to Israel after facing persecution. Within 3 years, Israel's population doubles. The country is desperately poor. Food is rationed and people live in tent cities. But they start building. The government launches massive projects, draining swamps, building roads, establishing farms. They create a new currency, a new military, and new institutions. Hebrew becomes the official language. Schools teach children from dozens of different countries. In 1956, Israel faces another war with Egypt. In 1967 comes the Six-Day War. Israel's neighbors again try to destroy it, but Israel wins a stunning victory in just 6 days. The country captures the West Bank, Gaza Strip, Sinai Peninsula, and Golan Heights. Most importantly, Israel reunites with Jerusalem and the Western Wall. For the first time in 2,000 years, Jews can pray at their holiest site. The 1973 Yom Kippur War catches Israel by surprise. Egypt and Syria launch a coordinated attack on Judaism's holiest day. Israel almost loses, but manages to turn the tide. These wars teach Israel an important lesson. It must be strong to survive. But strength isn't just about military power. Israel realizes it needs to build a modern economy. The problem is that Israel has almost no natural resources. No oil, limited water, and much of the land is desert. But instead of seeing these as problems, Israel turns them into opportunities. Take water, for example. Israel develops drip irrigation, which uses 90% less water than traditional farming. They build desalination plants that turn seawater into drinking water. Today, Israel actually has a water surplus and exports water technology worldwide. The desert blooms with high-tech agriculture. Israel develops new farming techniques, seeds, and equipment. They grow roses in the desert and export them to Europe. Cherry tomatoes? Those were invented in Israel. But the real breakthrough comes with high technology. In the 1970s and 1980s, Israel starts building a tech industry. The military plays a crucial role. Israel's army creates elite intelligence and technology units. Young people serve in these units, learn cutting-edge skills, and then start companies. Unit 8200, Israel's equivalent of the NSA, becomes a startup factory. Veterans of this unit create companies worth billions of dollars. The first major success is in telecommunications. Israeli companies help build the infrastructure for mobile phones and internet. Then comes the computer revolution. Intel builds its first major development center outside America in Israel. Israeli engineers help design the processors that power your computer. The Pentium chip, designed in Israel. Your smartphone's camera technology, invented in Israel. USB drives, instant messaging, navigation systems, all Israeli innovations. By the 1990s, Israel becomes known as the startup nation. Despite having less than 0.1% of the world's population, Israel has more companies on NASDAQ than any country except the US and China. The country has more startups per capita than anywhere else in the world. But it's not just about making money. Israeli innovations solve real problems. Take medical technology. Israeli companies develop artificial hearts, cancer treatments, and diagnostic tools. The pill cam, a tiny camera you swallow to examine your digestive system, was invented in Israel. Robotics companies create devices that help paralyzed people walk again. During the COVID pandemic, Israeli scientists were among the first to develop vaccines and treatments. Israel's agriculture technology feeds the world. Countries in Africa and Asia use Israeli drip irrigation and farming techniques. Israeli experts teach farmers in drought-stricken regions how to grow crops with minimal water. The country that was once dependent on food imports now exports agricultural technology globally. Energy is another area where Israel excels. The country discovers massive natural gas reserves in the Mediterranean Sea. Israeli companies develop solar power technology and energy storage systems. They're working on wireless charging for electric cars and revolutionary battery technology. But perhaps most impressive is how Israel handles security challenges. The country faces constant threats from terrorist groups and hostile neighbors. Instead of just defending, Israel innovates. They develop the Iron Dome missile defense system. This technology shoots down incoming rockets with 90% accuracy. When Hamas fires thousands of rockets at Israeli cities, Iron Dome saves countless lives. Israeli cybersecurity companies protect banks, governments, and businesses worldwide. The skills developed fighting cyber attacks are now used to defend other nations. Israel's space program is small but incredibly efficient. They put satellites in orbit for a fraction of what other countries spend. Israeli satellites monitor climate change, track illegal fishing, and improve GPS systems. What's the secret behind all this success? Several factors come together to create this miracle. First, education is incredibly important in Jewish culture. The tradition of studying and debating goes back thousands of years. Israeli schools emphasize math, science, and critical thinking. Second, military service brings young people together from different backgrounds. They learn leadership, teamwork, and how to solve problems under pressure. Third, Israel has a culture that embraces failure as part of learning. Unlike in many countries, failing in business doesn't carry a stigma. Entrepreneurs who fail are seen as experienced, not incompetent. Fourth, Israel invests heavily in research and development. The country spends more on R&D per capita than any other nation. Universities work closely with businesses to turn research into products. Fifth, Israel attracts talent from around the world. Jewish immigrants from the Soviet Union brought advanced math and science skills. Ethiopians, Indians, and others add their own expertise. This diversity of backgrounds creates innovation. The government also plays a smart role. Instead of trying to control everything, it creates conditions for success. Tax incentives for startups, funding for research, and programs to connect entrepreneurs with investors. Israel's story isn't just about technology and economics. It's about culture and society too. The country has a vibrant art scene with world-class museums, theaters, and music. Israeli films win international awards. The country hosts major cultural festivals and events. Food culture is incredible. Israeli cuisine combines Jewish traditions from around the world with Middle Eastern flavors. Hummus, falafel, and shakshuka are now popular globally. Israeli chefs win international competitions and open restaurants worldwide. Sports are also important. Israeli athletes compete in the Olympics and international competitions. The country's basketball and soccer teams play in European leagues. But the most remarkable thing about Israel is how it maintains democracy under pressure. Despite facing constant security threats, Israel remains a free society. The press is free, elections are competitive, and courts are independent. Arab citizens have full voting rights and serve in parliament. The country has had female prime ministers and presidents. Gay rights are protected, and Tel Aviv is considered one of the most gay-friendly cities in the world. Of course, Israel faces serious challenges. The conflict with Palestinians remains unresolved. There are tensions between religious and secular communities. The cost of living is high, and housing is expensive. Military spending takes resources away from other priorities. But throughout its history, Israel has shown a remarkable ability to overcome challenges. The country that started as a collection of refugee camps is now a prosperous democracy. The desert that was barren now blooms with agriculture and industry. The people who were scattered across the world for 2,000 years have rebuilt their homeland. Today, Israel is working on the next generation of innovations. Artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and biotechnology are major focus areas. Israeli companies are developing lab-grown meat, personalized medicine, and autonomous vehicles. The country is becoming a leader in climate technology and renewable energy. Space exploration is another frontier. Israel plans to return to the moon and develop space-based solar power. The same spirit that turned a desert into a garden is now reaching for the stars. What can we learn from Israel's incredible story? First, that vision and determination can overcome incredible obstacles. The idea of rebuilding the Jewish homeland seemed impossible for centuries, but people held on to the dream and worked to make it reality. Second, that diversity can be a strength. Israel's population comes from over 100 different countries. This diversity brings different perspectives and skills that fuel innovation. Third, that investing in education and human capital pays enormous dividends. Israel's success comes from its people, not natural resources. Fourth, that failure is part of the path to success. Israel lost battles but won wars. Companies failed but entrepreneurs kept trying. Fifth, that small countries can have a big impact. Israel shows that size doesn't determine significance. Innovation and creativity matter more than territory or population. The story of Israel is far from over. This tiny nation continues to punch above its weight in technology, culture, and global influence. From ancient kingdoms to modern miracles, from exile to independence, from desert to high-tech powerhouse. Israel's journey shows us that with determination, creativity, and hard work, anything is possible. What part of Israel's story surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed learning about this incredible country, hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing stories from around the world. And remember, every great achievement starts with someone who refuses to give up on their dreams. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.